So let me just say a warm welcome to everyone here. We're glad to have you here. So my name is Valerie Taylor, and I'm the CEO and president of CMD-IT, and that's the Center for Minorities and People with Disabilities in IT. And I am also the division director for mathematics and computer science at Argonne National Laboratory. And so it's a wonderful pleasure to have everyone here for our May webinar. And before I introduced our webinar speaker and our moderator, I want to take this opportunity to remind everyone about the upcoming TAPIA conference. And so that is scheduled for September 10th through the 12th in Dallas, Texas. And so registration is now open. We have an exciting program that includes sessions on generative AI. We also have a hackathon for students, and I'm going to give everyone here a preview of coming attractions, and that is our Ken Kennedy Distinguished Speaker is also our webinar speaker. Woo woo! So exciting, exciting, exciting. So with that, I'm going to have my introductions. So first, let me introduce our moderator, and that's Amira Johnson, who is a LEAP Scholar at Carnegie Mellon University in the School of Computer Science. Her research is in the area of computational biology and human-computer interaction. So she's a senior at CMU with an interdisciplinary background that goes across the computational biology, the human-centered interaction, as well as education. So you could hear that as she was talking about her background, which is great. And I'm excited to have our webinar speaker today, and that is Rubén Lozano Aguilera, whose expertise spans transportation, retail, and education, and his commitment to ethical AI has shaped training programs at Amazon, Google, and MIT. So, in addition, he has done so much for many different organizations and startups and nonprofits and LGBTQ plus organization. And also Rubén chairs the Commanded Industry Advisory Board, our IAB, and he holds a BS in electrical engineering from Tech de Monterrey and an MBA from MIT Sloan. And he is now at the Allen Institute on AI, or AI2. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amira and also Rubén. So glad to have you here.
All right. Well, thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction. I'm excited to be able to talk with you today, and thank you also to everybody for attending. Also, shameless plug, I hope to go to the Tapia conference as well, so maybe I will see all of you guys there. So, so we'll get started with a couple questions that we have prepared, and then hopefully at the end, if we have some time, we can open it up to our wonderful audience to ask a couple questions as well. So the first question we have for you is, can you tell us about what attracted you to AI2, as you recently joined your team?
Hey, hello. Thank you so much, Valerie, and also Amira for having me here, and everyone who is present. I'm also going to be attending Tapia, so hopefully we're all going to meet there. So yeah, in terms of like what attracted me to move to AI2, I just to share with everyone, I just joined last month, so I'm still pretty new to this new organization. Previously, I was at Google, and one of the things that pretty much attracted me to this organization is the specific work that they are doing on AI. Right, I've been working on the AI side for many years now, Previously, everyone was it was mostly known as ML, right? Machine learning. But as you all know, a couple of years ago, the development of Gen AI started to accelerate at a much different rate. The technology, the pace, the power of all these models, it was obvious that it was going to be different. And as a person who was using these new models, coaching some organizations about how to build application through these models, I realized the importance of making sure that these models were built in the right way. And what do I mean by that, right? In a way that were responsible, transparent. And I was really attracted to how the Allen Institute, the approach that they had in terms of open source and open science, because one of their main goals, right, as a nonprofit, is to really use AI for good and using AI to solve the world's biggest problems. And it's based on not only on openness in the sense of everyone should be part of this new development. It shouldn't just be part of like a few people. Like everyone can be part of this revolution. And also transparency, right? Like if you have transparency about how these models are used, what data is actually being used to train this model, what are the decisions that you're making there, and you put all out in the open, people can actually be like you make yourself accountable, number one, but it's also if there are problems with that, you not only have the people who build it, but you have the whole world who can help you actually fix or improve this model. So for me, that approach about of being open, being transparent, and using this technology for good that was the main purpose, right? That was what attracted me the most, and I decided to make the leap.
Wow, fantastic. Wow, thank you so much. Yes, I think transparency, like you mentioned, is super duper important and making sure that, like you said, it's not just a select few people who have access to this kind of thing, but that it's an opportunity for everybody to learn about it and come together. I think that's also very important. So thank you. That was a great answer. And so our next question is, what are some of the biggest challenges that you think there are in building open source AI tools for scientific research?
Yeah, and let me just clarify a bit something else. Yeah, the AI, the Allen Institute for AI, my role specifically is on how to use AI for science. So in terms of like what are the biggest challenges in building these open source AI models, I think that is this balance between openness and responsibility. Uh, I would say that I mean, it's still controversial. Like there are some people in the industry that may not be on board with openness, right? Because you can say, hey, if you're opening this technology that is so powerful, are you enabling other bad actors to use this technology for something bad, right? But at the same time, like you have the responsibility about like, well, if you have this technology and you're only limited to a certain set of individuals or corporations that are private and they may have different purposes or goals, what is the right approach? And I think that is something that as the industry, as all of us, as part of not only the industry, but like, as part of the people who are building this industry, we need to really think about. So yeah, so I think that the biggest challenge is to balance that part. Like if you're opening something that is so powerful, how do you do it in a way that you can do it in the right way, right? That you can that specifically in a way that can be used for more industries or for a better good. I will give a good example here. There are some specific industries that have way more um, requirements, right, in terms of privacy or data handling that are very that we really need to understand what tools we're using, what data we're using to make sure that the decisions and the outputs are correct. So if you're thinking about healthcare, financial services, where privacy is key, and maybe you want to have all of these models enabled in a private environment, right? Where when you know that your data will never be out from your control as an organization. So that's kind of one of some of the benefits that we can get, but also we need to balance like, okay, are we enabling bad actors? And if we, what are the ways to that we can create governance or ways to identify when something wrong is happening.
So true. Yes, very true. Very true. Wow, you say so many strong things. Okay, yes, let's move to the next question. And so what skills or experiences helped you transition into a lead technical product manager role?
That's a great question. Um, I mean, it's been a very interesting journey uh, because I was not when I joined Amazon is when I really started working with machine learning. I was in the search team, and search is pretty much like everything is based on machine learning. So that's how I started to get engaged and involved. But it was really interesting, and that the more challenging parts or building like machine learning products, it was not so much about the technology, but about again about the users, like what problem you actually want to solve, and really trying to figure out if the technologies that were out there were the right ones to solve that problem. And many things that happened during my time at Amazon and Google when I was working on machine learning and AI, it was pretty almost like convincing people not to use it. Because at some point it's such an amazing tool that can solve really complex problems, but there are many other problems that are not that difficult, and they can be solved so much easier with other techniques and more deterministic. When you have a problem that can um, be solved better with AI, that's when you want to solve it. So pretty much trying to understand that difference about like, yeah, the technology is really cool, but it's not about being cool. It's actually about solving a real problem. So I always try to think about that when I was as I'm continue working with product. And something that I realize and as in my role is that I was not really in the role that I had at Google. I really didn't have a lot of opportunity to start using Gen AI. So for me, that felt that, oh wow, for it was luck for me that I got into search and I was working on AI and ML without me really thinking about it. But this time I'm like, I need to be more intentional. I am not going to be just like being transferred to this team that is working in this amazing technology. I did try, but and then I realized I need to find a way that I can learn about it. So the way for me was to volunteer, and to volunteer in there were some projects internally at Google where they require people who will be coaching different organizations about how to use AI. I had been coaching organizations on how to use AI, but not Gen AI. So I did ask directly to the team to say, hey, I don't have that expertise, but I want to learn. Can you give me a chance? Can I learn with you, with the people that are taking these new courses? And I took the courses as everyone else. It's just that I had to be a little bit faster. So then, because then I had to be the coach, even though I was taking the courses at the same time that the
Right.
people that I was going to be coached. But that actually gave me the opportunity to start playing with this tool, to really start figuring out what are the problems with them, what are the pros, what are the cons, how can you make them better. and that's what started to like this process for me, that I was able to get into this industry, even though like my role per se didn't really allow for it. And I think that that's what happened, right? And part of it is always trying to look for the people who are working on these in interesting technologies, and be curious, and really reach out and say, I want to learn. And sometimes no one is going to answer you back, but
Right.
sometimes they will, right? And I think that taking that more intentional approach was open the doors for me. And the other part that I want to also share with a lot of you is that it's also important to be very honest about what you know and what you don't know. When I interview for the Allen Institute, I was I consume a lot of their information. They put a lot of like blog posts, videos about how all the systems work, and I didn't really understand all of them. I studied until I was able to understand and prepare for the interviews. But even in the interviews, I was very honest to say, hey, my experience is this much in real life. I've been studying, so my theoretical experience is here,
Right.
and there are many things that I don't know, right? And being able to be very upfront with the team during the interview process, I think that also was a good signal for a lot of the researchers that I'm working with, because they know that things are changing all the time, and it's really important to be upfront about what you know, what you don't understand, what you need help, so then you can keep moving forward. So that's how I started to navigate getting into specifically about AI. But I would have to say that um, as a product manager, the product manager skill set that continues to be the same, like trying to figure out, like really trying to understand what problem you're going to be solving, for whom you are solving this problem. How do you know that you have a problem? How are you going to know that you're actually solving this problem, right? That doesn't really change. But what it changes is this technology is pushing us to think very differently about what is the process to test ideas, to know if something is working or not. That is way harder to do it in Gen AI than in other systems. But also, it allows things to move so much faster. So, what do you do when some of the methodologies that in product managers management, sometimes you would say, oh, I will do research studies and foundational research and some experimentation, and it will take a couple of weeks because it's better to do this first, because the development will take months and months or even years. But now when the development is almost shorter than this, like user experience research and designs, then you have to start figuring out how do we do that? Like this is sometimes not the long pole anymore. So you really, I'm still trying to figure that out, to be honest.
Yes. Oh my goodness. You say so many good things. And then I'm just like, oh, I have to say something about that. I have to say something about that. So I'm gonna do my best. But oh my goodness, you just say so many good things. So I'm gonna start yes, back to what you were mentioning about being honest about what you know and what you don't know, and also being willing, like you said, to be curious and make opportunity for yourself. That is something that I've definitely have encountered at some point in my life. And I completely agree. Like just there's going to be times where people tell you no, but just kind of just flipping the coin until you get ahead. You know what I mean? Just like reaching out and making that opportunity for yourself, I think is super duper important. And then there was another thing that you had mentioned about, when we're thinking about the problems that we want to solve for AI. Like I think I learned about this in my design of AI products class, right? This last semester, where it's not about, just finding the hardest problem and saying, oh, let me solve AI with this right now, right? A lot of the times there's like this low hanging fruit problems that are right there that can be like easily, solved with AI. And like I said, everything you just said had just actually wrapped that class up in a bow. And it's like they were saying was very true. And it's good to hear that from, from somebody who has experience in the industry and stuff like that. And so, yes, I mean, wow, just so many good points. So yes, thank you. All right. So yes, okay. Our next question. is what current innovations are you able to highlight, possibly regarding the Olmo trace?
Yeah, so for the people who are not very familiar with AI2, as I was telling you, it's a nonprofit that is focusing specifically on building these really truly open models. What we say by that is that everything is open. It's not just the weights that are open, it's also the training data, the pre-training data, even the data that we use to train our models. You can just download that database if you want to train your models with data that is um, that you can use, that people have the rights to use. So I think that's really important. And I do like one of these new innovations, besides having this foundational model that is really powerful, similar to many other models that are trained with way more data. One of the challenges that Gen AI has is about transparency, right? Traceability. Like, how do I know that the information that you are providing is true and is correct? And many times, right? Like, what happens is some of these models are starting to add like some sources or saying, "Hey, I found this information through this website," or "I found this information about something else." And something that I don't know if you have tried using some of these tools. I was joking with some of my friends that were telling me, well, I mean, AI is getting much better at not hallucinating. And I'm like, well, it's actually getting really good at telling you that they're not hallucinating. Like they're telling you, oh yeah, everything that you asked me, like I found it, there's this a source, everything is here, but then when you tap on it and you actually see the source, it's not there. So, something that we were trying to do is to say, hey, how can we fix that problem, right? How can we make sure that whatever we are presenting to the user is actually coming from a specific source? So, pretty much what Olmo Trace is doing is saying, hey, this is the output from your question, and then you can actually highlight certain parts of the text and say, where did this text came from? Uh,
Mm,
and then it will actually get you the specific training data that was used to train that specific text. It's we still have to say that this is a best guess still, because what is happening like behind the scenes for Olmo is that we are pretty much like highlighting when we're creating an output, like um, pretty much tokenizing where like all of this information. And then
mm,
what happens is after we get the answer, we actually search for kind of those terms and or that text in the training data. So it's
mm.
like, oh, I found you here, right? So then you can start making the I would say the connection, right? So then, like, if you are actually putting a specific phrase or a specific quotation, it comes directly. You can tap, and it will tell you, "Hey, I use X many sources to be able to create this paragraph," or it comes the text directly from here. And I think that that's one very powerful tool that really changes the paradigm of many of transparency, right? When I remember in the early days when we were saying, hey, these models are using a lot of data, but we will never be able to tell you what data was used to be able to create your answer. It's like, well, it's possible. It's just, you just need to design it with that purpose in mind.
Right, right, right. Wow, yes. Transparency is so important. And I like that that's the first time I'm hearing of something where they, not only are showing the weights, but also all of the data that it's been trained on. I think that's really, really cool. So yes. All right. So our next question was, what advice would you give PhD students who are interested in working at the intersection of AI and open science?
I mean, I think that continue to be curious. I think that that's the most important part, but also get engaged with the open source community, right? You can start contributing like today, right? Like there's nothing that is preventing you to do that. And I think that that's something that is relevant. Like today, right? You can join some communities about open source, and you can also pretty much be part of the open source movement, right? If you have some ideas, publish those ideas or like write about them, like share your knowledge and share it to others. And I think that the part that I really enjoyed about this community is about this community that everyone is helping each other, right? You're not, yes, you're competing in some ways or others, but at the same time, you're saying, this is what I learned. You put it out in the open, and people can tell you, hey, this is you can improve things this way, or I found a better way, and everyone benefits there. So I think that um, continue to be curious, get engaged in the community, and also share your insights as well. I feel that I don't know. I talk from my personal experience. Many times I think that, oh, my ideas are not that exciting. Like no one really needs to hear about this, or whatever I'm doing, maybe not that interesting. But it's not true. Like maybe you think that because it's your day to day, but for other people, that could be an insight that could help them move their own research.
Right, right, right. All right. Well, thank you so much. That was a good answer. That was a good answer. So, this is our last question, and I think after this, we should be able to open it up to our audience who may have some questions. And so this last one is, can you share an example of any ethical considerations or broader long-term challenges that might be relevant regarding open source AI?
Yeah, there are, I was saying before, there are multiple challenges here, and some of those don't have an answer, right? And I'll give you like a very specific example, and specifically about open science, right? To say, okay, we want to use like scientists are working on some papers, they are publishing the papers, but some of these papers are behind a paywall, right?
Yes.
So you have certain publishers that have right to certain knowledge. So, for example, in terms of like data rights, as we are training our models, or if we are displaying this information, one could say, uh, well, we have to be very respectful, right? About like what is if you have a paper, is it behind a paywall or is not behind a paywall, right? Like, and if it's not behind a paywall, does that mean that it's like free for all? But who put it out there, right? So there's some ethical concerns about like what we should do, right? And there are some easy questions that you can say, hey, if I found a paper that is from this specific publisher, and this specific publisher is saying that you should not be distributing this information, even though you found it and it's out there, it doesn't mean that you have the right to do that. Like it was clearly someone who put it out there, likely with not the best of intentions. So you say, well, I'm not going to use it. But then if you think about like open science, it's like, well, are you restricting access to this science because you don't have the money to be able to pay for this knowledge, even though that knowledge was created with um, public funds, right? So I think that that's something that we'll need to really challenge as an industry about like what information is really open and what information should not be open, right? Like, and also trying to figure out if we are using certain information from different authors, for different creators, to generate content. What is the is there a way to compensate the people who are generating this content? Because at the end, I mean, you couldn't have done it in other ways. And for each one of these topics, you will have counter arguments, right? You may have counter arguments to say, well, that's how life works, right? If you hear a song, um, am I going to pay? Uh, royalties because it inspired me to write something like that is a
Yeah.
little bit similar. And you may say no, but you don't have to. But what if this like it's not you, but it's a machine that can produce
Right.
a million things, right? So, and it can do it instead of in a day, it can do it like in seconds, right? So I think that that's when you start saying, hey, it's not just about the analogies that we're using may need to change, and we may need to think about different models about how to think about data rights, and then you have to go with many other ethical concerns um, about what to do with the applications, right, of this technology. Are you going to be applying it for everywhere? How is it going to is it how are you going to disclose that it was applied? Even like I've been having conversations with some anthropologists to even think about how do we how should these machines actually communicate with us? Should they use the pronoun I, like I found this information, I discovered that? Is that what we want? Or even the language that we are using as we're interacting with these machines, is specifically in science. We kept thinking about just taking the information for granted to say, hey, if this AI model is telling me this, should I believe it? Or how can, or even the information is correct, how can the LLM invite self-reflection? How a good professor may be able to tell you potentially the answer or half of the answer, and
Mm.
then you interact with it, and then you actually learn a little bit more, right? So there are a lot of like nuance about how, number one, our brain works and how we interact as we enhance our knowledge, that we really need to go a little bit deeper and understand what is the right way or the best way to be able to adapt these models that will be actually helpful for everyone.
Yes, for sure, for sure. I agree with everything you said. Yes, these are definitely some things that we have to think about, but this actually brings me back to what you were saying before. Like who's the right group of people to make these decisions on what is right? These are just who knows? Who knows? So, but yes, so that was our last question. I just want to thank you so much, like I said, for taking the time to answer some of these. I hope the audience learned something because I surely did. And so now we're gonna open it up to the audience. If you guys have any questions, in the chat, they say feel free to use your hands to ask a question or to drop a question in the chat, and I'll read it out loud.
Yes, I think, who is it? Yasha has his hand raised.
Okay, take it away.
So Yasha, did you want to ask your question?
Yes. Hi. Thank you for taking the time, Ruben. So I'm in the process of refining my research focus. Um, so I'm presently just kind of focusing on. So I have a strong interest in AI for science, and uh, my focus is trying to intercept multiple subfields of machine learning. That can, I think, advance the state of the art. And there's 5 different subfields I think would be relevant here: reinforcement learning, deep learning, uh, meta learning, etc. And while I have this academic interest, I'm unsure how it is that larger organizations that are in non-university settings are approaching the same problem. And so I would love to get your thoughts on how it is that the Allen Institute for AI approaches AI for science. Because right now I'm just combining much different subfields of machine learning that I'm not so sure how much the Allen Institute uses. Um, I noticed that with Omotrace, I think you guys heavily rely on deep learning. I think that's a sort of core part of the framework. Anyway, I'll stop there. I'm rambling, but I wanted to get your thoughts on um, how it is that you're approaching AI for science. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think that when we're thinking about using AI or like accelerate science by using AI, we actually think about it in two different ways. One is how can we use AI to advance science? And in this case, for example, our users, again, thinking about as a product, right? Or users are scientists or people who do science or research, and how can we actually helping them in their full scientific cycle, right? From like discovery, hypothesis generation, experimentation, verification, etc. Like how can we help in that sense? But the other part that I think that may be more directly to your question is how can we advance the science of AI? Like how can we make sure that whatever we are actually doing is doing the work that it's supposed to do, right? And I think that that's part of how this. I mean, I'll give a good example that is not something that is well known for the industry, as all these different like agents, like AI agents, are coming out there. It's really difficult to know if these agents are actually working or not working. It's very difficult to test something that is non-deterministic, and it's very difficult to test that is non-deterministic in science. Uh, because even when you're thinking about a scientific process, right? Um, Even in hypothesis generation, sometimes a great hypothesis is actually against whatever data has come in the past, right? So, because if you create this type of model that are only producing things based on previous knowledge, there's a stop, right? Many times, like the real breakthroughs in science are because you are challenging previous knowledge, right? So I think that how can we bring that rigor of science and this process that it's very challenging on how we build these agents or these systems that are using AI. Um, so yeah, I think that a big part that is here is how do you know that these systems or agents are actually working, and how what is the right way to test something that is not deterministic? What is the right type of like reasoning that needs to happen here? So I think that a lot of that's one way that we are approaching this problem. How to help researchers in general how to use AI, like what is the right way, like how can they trust the system? But as the people who are building the system, how can you know that what you're building is the right thing? How can you apply the same rigor in science in the way that you're building these systems?
Great.
And
I do have one follow up. That's I don't know if that's allowed, but you know what? I'll okay. The follow up is uh, I was curious about the usage of AI to accelerate, let's say, research in chemistry or biology or physics or these kinds of domains. I wasn't sure if AI too was engaged in those kinds of activities.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's one specific initiative that is already public that I can talk about it. That is part of the Cancer AI Alliance, where AI too is one of the main partners with all the different research institutions about how to use pretty much their models to be able to to advance science. And I think that part of all of these what do you call about this new field of science, right, is even like to rethink even how models are trained. Like we keep like many times we are training models with words, right? But can we train models with genes, right? Can we use a different type of input in the way that these large language models are generated? Could we create a large genetic like gene model, right? So I think that is still part of something that we're considering. I think that for the Allen Institute per se, our approach has been like we are a research institute and for computer scientists, so we can start with with the science of computer, right? With computer science. But the advantage that we have is that we have this big partnership with the other Allen institutes that are specifically about biology and life sciences. So how can we collaborate to adapt that to a different science? And the part that I'm thinking right now is as we expand, right, to different types of sciences, how can these models be adapted to really solve material science or chemistry or social science, economics, right? Like what would be the right way to be expanding the coverage that we have for our models and solutions?
Thank you so much. That helps a lot.
And, and let me see, because I think there was another hand raised, but I'm not certain.
We also had one that came in the chat as well.
Okay, do you want to ask that one?
Yes, so this is from Anna or Anna. I'm sorry if I don't know which one it is, but it says, Rubén, great presentation. As someone who is currently pursuing an MBA myself, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what types of classes or concentrations you found most valuable in preparing for a leadership role in AI. And given your diverse background, which aspects of your MBA were the most relevant in helping you transition into AI leadership? And how did your concentration or major shape that journey?
Cool. No, thank you for the question. In terms of my experience, at least in pursuing an MBA, I think that for me, when I joined the program, my main goal was to really explore what were the possibilities of things that I could do. I knew that I liked technology, but I didn't really know how to apply it or in terms of like leadership, I never saw myself as someone who could be leading a team. And that was an opportunity for me to give it a try. And also, interesting enough, it was very revealing to me that as I was attending many of these classes with discussions about business problems, I realized that a lot of the challenges that I had been facing as an engineer were actually like you could actually apply similar like logic or learnings to the business world. It was a matter of saying, how can you make that connection to say, oh yeah, that's actually similar. I actually do have some experience. It's just that the topic is may not be the one that everyone is talking about. So I do think that that's something that I really took out from a lot of those classes. But in terms of like some of the classes that were the most relevant for me, I would say that at least from at while I was at MIT, there was a couple of classes that were specific to what is called like at MIT, but maybe it's in other places like system dynamics. That is pretty much how to understand how complex systems actually work and how can you represent very complex systems, like what are the inputs and outputs, what are the feedback loops, what are the reinforcement loops. So if you can map a really challenging problem in something that is a system where you know like, oh, if you add if this part starts increasing, it will impact that, but if you don't do that, it will not. Having that kind of like systematic mentality, I think that has helped me a lot to as I see a problem to say, how can I represent this as a model, as a systematic model? So that was really helpful to me. And the other type of classes that were pretty helpful were also about like that were classes that were more multidisciplinary, classes that really try to bring like economics and ethics together. How because at the end, like the real world is very multidisciplinary. So to be able to see the same topic from many different lenses, that is pretty helpful. So if you have chances as you're pursuing your MBA to get classes that give you a chance to do something like that, it will be pretty. I will really recommend. And and one more thing that I that this may not be the most common advice for for most people, but one class that was super interesting and is still helpful today is tax accounting. I know it doesn't sound like the most interesting one, but the part that was really critical in that is just to understand how incentives work, right? And how can you actually, as kind of in public policy, really foment an industry or like foster certain behaviors or others versus when you're using taxes in a government. But I think that the part that I got from that is incentivize how do you incentivize something to happen? Like every time that you have a problem or a challenge, you're like, um, this person will or this organization will never change. You're like, well, but what can you do to make that like to persuade someone to do something that you need to? I mean, obviously, in taxes is very specific with taxes, but then you start thinking about like what are other ways that I can use that because at the end, I think when you are building anything, you need to work with a lot of people, and you really need to understand their intentions and how can you create most of the time kind of a win-win-win situation.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that question. Did anyone else, I'm not sure if anyone's raising their hand, but did anyone else have another question?
Yes, I raise my hand.
Oh, go right ahead, Soru.
Yes, Ru. Yes. Yeah, thank you. So my question goes like this. I'm a management student pursuing my master in engineering management. But I would like to know how can I use day-to-day AI to be a good leader in the future?
Sorry, can you repeat to do what?
I mean, how can I like implement AI to be like a good leader to work with it, to help me in my daily activity to perform my duty as a leader?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one really, I would say like really I wouldn't say simple, but I have found this to be very effective, is to use some of these chat boxes as kind of a devil's advocate when you are thinking about an idea. So you have an idea and you may be asking the LLM to say, hey, what are the weak points about this idea? Or how would and I would use like specific people that I may admire their leadership style, and say like I don't know, one of them is like, for me, is Fred Kaufman, to say, hey, how would Fred Kaufman will actually think about this topic, or what are some of the what will be the ways that this person will make it better, and just being able to interact back and forth about like what's wrong about my idea or my approach. It's interesting. You start like kind of getting insights that you may have not found before, but also it will also start showing you what are the limits of this technology, right? Like as you start like playing with it, you're like, oh, you're good for this, you're not good for that. And I think that that's something that I will encourage everyone to do. Really get and play with the technology. It doesn't really need to be something super high stakes. I think that before this call started, Valerie was actually sharing that how she was using it for cooking recipes, and that's true. Like it's something that you can use in your daily life, and just the fact that you're using it and you're experimenting, it will start giving you a sense of again like like what are the pros, the cons, the limits, and then your mind will start like try and identify like okay these are opportunities that I could focus on.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we're at our 10-minute mark, and I
Oh, can I ask one
want to be
more
conscious of everybody
question?
else's time. Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yes, one more question. Take it away.
So thank you. So Ruben, I have this question too with, we all recognize large language models, you're ingesting a lot of data, but the data can be in different modalities. That is, you can have text, you can have images, like for example, in the medical field where you're having a lot of X-ray images, you can have voice as well. You can have video. You can also have code. So it's many different modalities that you can have. The data can be structured, unstructured. I guess, how do you handle the different modes of data that you're using in terms of the training or even the refinement?
That's a great question that I actually don't know, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
I I yeah, that's good. Yeah, it is yeah, because I mean something that I know that we are this is not actually answering your specific question, but just to give you a sense of like how we're using some of this technology a little bit differently sometimes that
Okay.
you might expect. Um,
Right.
as as we're doing, for example, we're trying to work on using scientific AI agents for like data analysis. What we have found, for example, is that sometimes the LLMs, like the image, what do you call? Um, Sometimes we can get better insights if we have like text data and we convert it into a graph, and then we
Mhm.
use an actual model to read the graph and then make a conclusion. Because I think that there's still things that even though the data may be it's similar to us, to be honest. Like you may see data in a tabular form and it's really big, and you may come up with a specific insight, but if you see it visualized, the insight is different. We like
Right.
we're seeing that like some of other models actually work like that as well. So we're like, yeah, it's better if we actually generate the image and then we let the model see the image and then it will have like a better
Ah,
insight.
okay.
But yeah, that's a part that yeah, that
Okay. So this is, yes, because we don't know that, we don't know it either. And that's, so I was just wondering too, is AI too looking at that? But it's very interesting that you're looking at the translation into different modes. So if you're able to translate into different modes and then do the analysis around the data, that's an interesting concept.
yeah.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna take that one back.
I mean, we're still learning what works, what doesn't work, right? And I think that many
Right,
times it's just about like give it a try, right? And also really thinking about um, how we do it, like how we humans sometimes make those decisions, and you're like, if I try to make this work similar than we do, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? But
right. And that's, that's all a part of getting something to work, is
yeah,
that, yeah, so definitely. And I think, let's see, Marjorie, is it a quick question? Your hand-
Hopefully, sorry, if you don't
Okay,
mind. Ruben, thanks so much for the session. So I just had a question about where do you see AI going in the next 5 to 10 years? And with that, how can we include the voice of marginalized communities in the development of these systems?
great question.
Oh, I'll answer the second one first, and I think that you need to be part of the conversation. And when I'm saying you need to be part of the conversation, is that you need to be in the places where this research is happening. You need to be in the place where these decisions are being made. And I know that is really challenging for, I mean, for many of us, right? To be in those places, we have to fight to get there. But sadly, it's very challenging for people who haven't been in those situations to actually think about about the consequences that can have for others. So I think that my recommendation is obvious and to feel not secure but like empowered to say I should be part of this, right? Like I and when you're thinking about AI, right, like AI is using the knowledge of every one of us to be able to create whatever is there, so you're part of it. Like AI is what it is because of all the knowledge from many of our generations, right? Like it's not just one it's not the knowledge for like a single group of people, right? So that would be number one. I think that number two is that if you don't, I mean, not everyone needs to be in the decision on the decision table, right? But I do think, and this is related to your first question, like how do we make sure that this is done? Like what are the consequences in the next 5 to 10 years? We really need to push for governance. I know that right now it could be pretty challenging to do it, but it's very important that we push for governance and to push um, to really think like the second order consequences. Because what I do believe is that when you're thinking about like 5 to 10 years, I'm not really even thinking right now about like how more powerful this technology is going to be. You know, we had the discussion, even if today the technology doesn't evolve anymore, and it's just the power that it has today. When you start implementing all of that, like over the place, the consequences, the social consequences, are going to be really big. Like these tools are really powerful. You can actually be way more productive. And I think that one of the challenges is like what is going to happen when less people can do more work. And I think that we kind of know what is going to happen, right? And what is going to happen when you start seeing people who use this technology and people who don't use this technology, and the gap will increase. And I think that in terms of, I think that that's why I do believe so much in this organization, because and as these new technologies are coming, we have to be part of this wave. Like there's no other way, and we have to bring as many people into this wave, because if we're not there, we're going to be left behind. So maybe not the most optimistic thing to say at the end, but I think that the we're still on time. And I think that that's a part that brings me kind of energy and saying I want to be part of the people who are building these systems. Yeah.
So I think and I'll go ahead and conclude. Is that okay? If, yes, because I look at time, so I'm trying to get my camera right. But I think that's a great way, Ruben, of a call to action. And that is that we all do need to be engaged from different communities, marginalized communities, but that engagement is so important so that we are not left behind. So I thank you for that call to action of the engagement with respect to AI. And And Amira, such an impressive background for a senior, especially at CMU. So thank you for great questions and for that engaging discussion. So this was just wonderful. And so I want to thank the audience for participating, but a wonderful thank you to Rubén for insightful comments about AI and where things are going and generative AI and also your path to where you are today. So very impressive. So with that, I'll say thank you. And also a last reminder about the Tapia Conference, September 10th through the 12th. Look forward to seeing everyone there and fully engaged in the discussions around generative AI and other topics. So with that, thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful day or evening. So,
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you so much.
thank
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
you.